Yo, welcome back to the final part of my guides to building naked Blackmagic. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to take all the components that we took off the Blackmagic camera and assemble them onto the HaloRC naked Blackmagic 4K kit. I'm also going to show you how to shim the sensor. This is obviously a really important part of building your own camera effectively. Inside the camera, where the camera sensor is, are these tiny little metal shims, just like this, and they are used to perfectly align the sensor to the lens. And we need to do the same thing within the naked Blackmagic. In my guide, I tell you some wrong information, so this is really important that you watch this part first and pay attention to what I'm going to say right now. The sensor mount, the tolerances are really good. I have managed to design the sensor mount in a way where all of the ones that I'm putting together are having perfect focus at infinity, using the shims that I intended to use with it. So basically inside the camera you're going to get a 0.5, a 0.3 and one or two other really thin shims. My sensor mount has been designed to work with just the 0.5 and whatever extra thin shims you get with it. So you can take the 0.3 shim out and put whatever shims you have left in it, and it should be focusing at infinity perfectly. Obviously then you have your 0.3 shim left over, that if there has been any little tolerance differences and you need to adjust it, you can remove the thin shims and add in the 0.3 shim. Or if you need to remove shims, you've got those thin shims that you can take out, or you could take out the 0.5 and put in a 0.3. So there's loads of room for adjustment. In the video, I think I've recorded some of these parts quite early on, and I actually originally did it so that you used the 0.5 and the 0.3 and no other shims. But I've changed that, so I needed to tell you now. I'm going to put something over the video as well, so you know then. Other than that, yeah, everything in the video is all good. So yeah, hope you enjoy building your kit and having a bit of a closer look at what I've come up with. And yeah, let's head over to the bench now and get stuck in. Laters. Okay, so now that we've removed all the parts from the case, we can reassemble them onto the sensor case. And it is basically just doing the exact reverse of taking them off. So we're going to start with the UV filter. So you'll see on this UV filter that two sides to it with an O-ring all the way around it, and you'll see that one side has a smaller diameter than the other. The side that has the smaller diameter goes into the case first. So you can see this side has got a smaller diameter than this side is bigger. So pop it in like that. And that O-ring will seal, provide a dust seal for the sensor case. So just insert that top ring there. And just put these two bolts in and make sure they're done up all the way down to the bottom. This is very hard to do off camera because these are quite fine, and I'm trying my best not to round them off, but at the same time being able to show you. So the bolts should be able, you should be able to get these bolts to go all the way down, and the ring not have any movement in it. You want to try and keep this as clean as possible as you're putting it together. So it's a good idea to use one of these little blower things. Now putting in this part, it's quite simple. You just feed the ribbon cable through the slot and kind of push it so you're trying to get it out that way, and it will hook round and come out the other side. So like, it's a perfect fit. Sometimes you have to just get your driver on that and push it down so it sits nice and flat and sits on top of the mounting hole there. Then we can take our final 3 screws to fix this in place. This final one with the little PCB can be a little bit tricky, but if you've got a magnetic driver, it's not too hard. There we go. So now all the bolts are in place and that whole part is all put back together, we can reassemble the bottom mechanism. So drop your spring in there, make sure it's standing upright, then take your button and just drop that in there like so. This little clip here just stops it from popping back up and blocks light leak. That just clips back in place like so, with the button like that. Then you take the spring mech, put that back on top, pop the ring in place and put these 4 bolts back on. And there we have it. Now you've fitted all your MFT mounting mechanism to the sensor case, and we can move on to fitting the shims and the sensor. Now that we have all the lens attachment parts fitted to our lens and sensor mount, it's time to fit the sensor. And this is where we're going to be using the shims, and the way I've designed mine is that it should work fine with just using whatever thick shims, so a 0.5 and a 0.3 shim in here should be alright. and then we'll check the focus and adjust the shims accordingly. So take your 0.5 and your 0.3 shim from earlier. You'll have a little plastic bit there, but I broke mine off. I always end up having the rejects. It still works fine without it, so don't worry if you break it off yourself. Just makes it a little bit easier to line these up when there's a pin there for it. So then just take your sensor, pull the ribbon cable out of the way, drop it in place and feel around until you feel the rubber dust shield grip in. And there we go, it's created a seal around it now. Using the wider Phillips head driver bit. Just going to fit these 3 bolts back in. Nice and carefully. Take your time. I like to go almost all the way in with all 3 of them first and then tighten them up at the end. And when I say tighten them up, you don't tighten them right down. You'll find that they screw in nice and freely to start with, and then as soon as I just use finger and thumb, and as soon as the pressure increases, I release. So they're just tightened up enough without too much pressure. So as soon as the pressure increases there, I'm going to stop. Stop. And for the third one, stop. So you don't have to worry about plugging that in for testing, but you can if you want. Like so. Then we're going to go and plug that into our PCB and check the focus. Okay, before we connect the sensor and the sensor case to the PCB, there's a little bit of preparation work we need to do on the PCB itself. So we need to attach the Bluetooth module into this ribbon connector. And we also need to attach this tally light into that ribbon connector like so. And rather than having these all flap around, we're going to use a bit of double-sided foam tape to hold them in place. So you can fold this back on itself like so. And then without covering the LED, I like to put a bit there. And attach the tally light to the PCB like so. Then we're going to flip this over and the Bluetooth module is going to be stuck to to the top. Try to get it to stick to the top of these 4 components. I won't try and pretend that I know what they are. So you can put a bit of double-sided foam tape there, another bit there, and another bit there. And then stick the Bluetooth module there. And then we have the tally light and the Bluetooth module fixed to the PCB. In your kit you're going to get 2 bags of hardware. There's going to be one with standoffs in and one with thumb screws in. Start with the one with the thumb screws in. This is for mounting your PCB to the bottom plate. We won't need the thumb screws for now, but what we're going to do is take these M2 bolts, feed them up from the bottom so the recess for the alpha gels is on top. Feed them up from the bottom and then use these plastic spacers, just put them on like that. That's going to raise the PCB up off the plate. Now if you can't get it in, just turn it around, put it on the other side. It's because I've made one end a little bit tighter than the other so that they grip better. Now take your PCB and the side with the SD card and CFast slot go at the end with the curve. That's the front. And then just carefully line it up and feed it onto the bolts. Like so. These are little tiny M2 lock nuts. So once these are in place, it's not going to be coming undone. So just go around and tighten down all the M2 bolts. May need to get a driver on the other side to stop it from spinning. And just do it down nice and tight, and so that it holds it in place. Actually made a little bit of a mistake. You don't want to put that one on just yet, because we'll be using that to secure the sensor in place. So now that your PCB is nicely secured to the bottom plate, you're going to take your sensor that's all assembled into the sensor case, line up the connector, which there's a nice little outline on the silk screen there. So just line it up, you'll feel it fall into place, and then just gently push down. Make sure it's nice, make sure it's all properly connected. Take this little clip that you removed from the PCB earlier and put it over the hole and the connector like so. And then put your little M2 nut on top. that's super secure now, and your connector's not going to come off. So next up we're going to be working on the control buttons and the power supply. To do this we're going to be actually removing this black cable from within the case, which is actually glued to the PCB a bit, but you can just pry it off and it pops off like so. Or you can purchase a brand new one, which is quite nice sometimes to use a nice new shiny one. And you're going to get this connector, cut it in half, split it like that so you have 3 sets of 2 pins, and then cut out the middle ones. Then you can use some cutters or a knife to expose some of the wire underneath, ready for soldering. You can even twist those together to make it a little bit easier. Just going to solder the tips of this little connector. So when looking at this little connector, you will see that there are, you can see the metal on one side, but you can't see the metal on the other. The side that you can see the metal on is the top side. The control board goes there, and the power comes out of here straight into there. So the left hand side connector goes to the positive pad, and the right hand side of the connector goes to the negative pad. And then that should just connect into there like so, and then sit underneath. It's like the perfect length to fit there. But before connecting that, going to need to connect an XT30. These pads are quite small, and well, there's not a lot of current going through the board, so you don't need normal XT30 size wiring. So I like to use this 26 gauge wire like so, and then obviously you're just going to connect XT30 or whatever power connector you want to use. Basically I like XT30 because I can plug 2S LiPo straight into it, but if you want to save yourself a gram maybe, then you could use a smaller connector. So yeah, I'm not even going to bother wiring on a XT30 at this stage, because I'm just trying to get this video done, because this is what's been holding me up, is that I've got the record button, which is this. I've got the pads broken out there, and I know that there is a way to connect those to your flight controller so that you can stop and start recording with with the transmitter, but I couldn't figure it out in time for this video, so there will be an update released once I can figure it out. Now, so you want to take your FCC ribbon cable. You'll see that there's pins exposed on one side, and then you have to flip it over for the other. Pins up goes into the black magic like so. Now it doesn't go all the way in, obviously, it just goes in a little bit because the connector is quite small. And then this goes in like that. And you bend it over on itself like this, and it fits in nice and neatly in there. You just push your connector in there, and just fits perfectly in there. And you've got, so this is your little power switch, turning the power on and off, and your record button just there. Now that you've got your control board and power all installed and your sensor attached, now it's time to plug it in fire it up, connect to your monitor, and check the focus. So this next section was actually filmed a bit earlier, and I was doing it without attaching it to the PCB first. I actually think you could build up the entire kit at this stage, even mounting the sensor to the top plate before testing, but just in case you've made a mistake, like your buttons aren't working and you've connected this cable the wrong way round or something like that, it's maybe easier to check your focus and make sure and check that the whole camera is working at this stage while it's half apart, rather than having to break it all apart later on. So yeah, let's head over and I'll show you how to check the focus and what to look for, and what to change with the shims depending on how the focus looks. Okay, so this is my test setup, my test PCB. So excuse the jankiness a little bit. I've still got like the power switch, the power supply and the switches all attached to this top plate here, so you'll have to excuse that, but I thought it would be important to show the shimming process. So you're going to need your monitor connected over HDMI, obviously your sensor mount and everything all built and connected to your board, and your phone with your Blackmagic app ready to go. We're just going to plug her in. And you'll see we get an image, obviously. What we're going to want to do is set the focus to infinity and then adjust settings in aperture so that it isn't so overexposed that it can't focus. I think I might have actually nailed it straight away. So you can see those red lines there, that's showing you where it's focused. And when I tested earlier with the camera before I took it apart, yeah, all I needed to do was get that chimney in the top of right in the middle of the frame, that chimney stack there. Just needed to get that perfectly, that to be showing red, and then I'd know that it's focused to infinity. That's so that you can see like everything is in focus, from the chair nearest to me to the little plants and stuff around the garden, and those chimney stacks in the distance. It's probably still a little bit overexposed, but I haven't got an ND filter on it at the moment. There we go, a little bit better. So the idea is that, say it was focused and you weren't getting the red quite on the top of that building there, and it's like that, it would mean that you need to take some shims out. And if you were getting it all totally in focus but you weren't hitting the infinity mark on the camera yet, like there, it would mean that you need to add shims. So you just have to go through a process of adding and removing shims until you've got it perfectly aligned. My prints have like almost a zero tolerance, so this is just using the 0.5 and the 0.3 shim, and as you can see it's perfect. I haven't got the best place for testing infinity, so it may need some fine adjustment actually, but that's the general idea. Hopefully you've got a better place where you can have a bit more in the distance to focus on, rather than just one stack, a chimney stack. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay, so next up we're going to be mounting the sensor mounting point and the strut mounting points to the top plate. We'll be attaching the standoffs and then putting the whole thing together. So you're going to take your second bag of hardware, And you're going to want to sort out your there should be 4 longer button heads. These are 14mm, and there should be 5 countersunk, 5 little black countersunk bolts as well. That's for your case. 2 M3 lock nuts and 2 18mm button heads. The rest are all 8mm bolts and 20mm standoffs. So first we're going to install these strut braces. We're going to use a 14mm bolt on the front, so just get that started. You'll see that there's a press nut fitted inside these. You're going to want that on the inside of the frame, like so, and then you use an 8mm in the back, and that 8mm goes into a press nut on the bottom of the top plate. Do the same on the other side. Then we're going to take our sensor mounting point and attach that there using 3 of these 8mm bolts. Next up, we're just going to attach the other 6 standoffs to these points, and then attach that whole plate to the bottom plate. Okay, now that all the standoffs are in place and the 2 plates are connected together, you can go ahead and pop the lock nuts into the mount. There's some little recesses that hold the nuts in place so that you don't have to get a driver on the other side, which would be impossible. And then we can lift up the sensor, curl it around, drop it into those slots, and use these 18mm bolts to go through all of that and into the lock nuts. Like so, creating this nice hinge mechanism. Finally, we're going to take the struts and the last 2 14mm bolts, and the struts have got that slot inside them that goes into the top plate, and then the bolt goes through all of it into the mounting point and through into the press nut. This one is going to be very difficult for me to do on camera. You're going to find it a bit easier to put together than me because I'm trying to do it on camera at the same time. You'll find over time this will free up slightly. It's quite stiff to start with. Okay, sorry, but I can't actually find the bolts. I can't put my hands on them right now, and I'm really trying to finish this video. So the last thing you're going to need to do, like at this stage, you could change the shims on the sensor while it's all together like this. You don't need to take it all apart to adjust the shims, but once they're all done and set in place and you've bolted your sensor back in, you can take your back plate. I like to align it at the sensor part first and then just go around and click it into place and then attach it using the 5 bolts that come with the kit. Put some battery straps on it and you're good to go. So yeah, hopefully this guide has been useful, and I've included enough stuff to help you get the kit together safely. And obviously if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them. So there we go. The Naked Blackmagic kit is all together and ready to go.